Hi there, welcome to Carla Voyance, where I discuss all things intuitive, Akashic records, and counselling. I'm the owner of Carla's Realignments and the author of various personal development books. I'm your host, Carla Savannah. Thank you for joining me.
Hi everyone. I always get lots and lots of questions about spirit guides, so I thought I'd create this bonus little audio all about spirit guides. So what are spirit guides? Well, spirit guides are ultimately beings that have surpassed the need to have to incarnate over and over again in order to learn their lessons. So basically it's like someone who's gone to university, they've done the course, and now they can stay at home and do their thesis, basically. So ultimately, these beings don't need to incarnate in physical 3D form anymore, and they can continue to learn and continue to further their studies by guiding and helping us and supporting us, almost like a tutor. I find that people who are studying midwifery, they're actually doing these now. There's some student midwives that are actually following a pregnancy, and they're getting to learn how to put their work into practical terms. There are all sorts of different guides. We have guardian angels, we have outer guides, we have master guides, we have inner guides. And ultimately what I want to focus on is our inner guides, because our inner guides are working with us only, whereas the master guides and the outer guides might deal with either bigger issues in humanity or bigger groups of people. So our inner guides are basically ours and only there for us to support and guide us. Each of us can present with anything between around 2 guides all the way up to 7 or 8 guides. Absolutely maximum would be 8. Generally, we wouldn't need more than that. So the spirit guides that come in, they basically come in based on how much responsibility we're actually taking in our lives. So the more responsibilities we're taking on, the more spirit guides we have. The first guide that comes in is our birth guide, and that guide will come in basically when we're transitioning from spirit world into a physical body. So at birth, that's why it's called out a birth guide. And that guide will be the one guide that will follow us all the way from birth until we cross over back into spirit form. Then generally we'll get a next guide, anything between the ages of maybe 3 to 7 years old, where we're taking just a little bit more autonomy or responsibility for ourselves. And then between the ages of around 8 to our early teens, we might get another one. Then around our teen years to our later teen years, we'll get another one. And then after 18, we might get an adult guide that will step in. So basically, as we continue to take on more responsibility and we start to step away from our family karma, and we start having the ability to create our own karma, we will have each of the spirit guides step in and help us based on what we're actually experiencing or doing at that moment in time. So obviously our birth guide would be something that's arranged pre-birth, because we know that that's the one that's going to follow us all the way from birth till death. And sometimes we can organise some of the other ones because we know the specific lessons we're going to be learning throughout our lives, and we might choose specific guides that have mastered those specific areas. Otherwise, it's ultimately the choices that we're making on a daily basis, and whatever the direction of our life is going, we'll hire that specific guide to help guide us through that specific experience. So ultimately, they're actually there working for us, and they're hired by us to guide and support us. So how about what our guides will and won't do, okay? Our guides are designed to guide us, not tell us what to do. They absolutely have to honour our free will. So if you go and ask your guide a question like, should I leave my husband? The guide is definitely not going to interfere, and it probably won't participate in that kind of question. However, if you were already having made a decision to leave your husband, for example, and you were to say to your spirit guide, okay, I've decided to leave my husband, now tell me how to do it. What is the most kindest, most amicable, most stress-free way to leave my husband? then that's where your spirit guides would actually step in and support you. Because ultimately, then you've already made a decision. They're not taking away your free will. All they merely have to do is guide you to doing it properly or doing it in a better way. So that's why they're called spirit guides. They give guidance as to how, but they don't tell you what to do. When I'm doing a realignment for someone, I want to find out how many inner guides they have or how many spirit guides they have. And usually people who present with a lot of spirit guides, I know that they're creating a lot of different changes in their life and they've got lots of things going on. Whereas I find that people who have slightly less guides, so anything from around maybe 2 or 3, I know that they're not making very many big changes in their lives. And if these spirit guides have really nothing to do, or they're not growing or they're not learning through your experience, they will kind of just drop off or move on to the next appropriate experience. I mean, a spirit guide is not really going to learn anything from our human experience if we're doing the same things over and over again with the same people, the same places. We're not really growing and learning as a person. We're just basically doing the same thing. Then they're not really learning. So it's normal for us to just let them go and move on to another experience where they can continue to learn and grow. For this reason, I often find that when people are close to deceasing or they're close to crossing over, usually at much older age, they will present with maybe only 1 or 2 guides. And quite simply because when we reach a certain age, we're not really doing or experiencing anything new. And especially if we're in a nursing home and we don't have much autonomy or power over our own decisions or any responsibility, then it really is no need to have spirit guides in that case. So they won't present with more than 1 or 2 guides. It's just the one that's there, basically just waiting for them to cross over. So anytime I see only a couple of guides, I know this person is close to their deathbed. I am going to talk to you a little bit about negative guides in a moment, but just before that, I want to let you know a little bit about my spirit guide realignments that I do and what's involved in them. So ultimately, when I do a spirit guide realignment, I try to find out about the person's inner guides and I find out what their personality is like, what planet they came from, what role they play on your team, how they prompt you or send you signs or signals, and I'll channel a message from each of them. So it's a lot of information that goes into one realignment. So if you ever wanted a spirit guide realignment, that would be, an option. I find that the spirit guide realignments can be a little bit daunting if you haven't already had a realignment one with me, a full realignment. So it's probably a better idea to have a full realignment first before you consider having a spirit guide realignment. But it's not completely impossible. Now, my realignments take me days to channel, okay? It's a lot of pages of channeling and pre-organizing before our phone call. So for that reason, I really require the investment commitment to make sure that, I'm not doing all this work and then the person backs down. Okay, so I promised I was going to talk about negative guides. Now, negative guides are very interesting, okay, because negative guides aren't intended to be something bad or negative. They're just called negative guides because they uphold a program for us that is probably not beneficial to us when we get older. Usually negative guides will step in. Most of the time it's at a young age, up until our teen years. And an example of a negative guide is, say someone had a traumatic event when they were younger, where either they were abused or they were hurt by someone. So what happens is they subconsciously decide to hire a guide that upholds the energy of people aren't safe, or humans can't be trusted, or someone will hurt me. So then what happens is this spirit guide will constantly uphold that energy that people can't be trusted and that people can easily hurt you. And it becomes a negative guide because as we get older, maybe we do have certain skills where we can decide whether someone is safe or trustworthy or won't hurt us. But because we've already hired this guide to basically hold that thinking that, ooh, people can't be trusted and, we can get hurt and it's not safe to trust people, it becomes a negative guide because it's actually stopping you from getting close to people or stopping you from creating deeper, stronger connections with people. And that works negatively for us. So when I do a realignment 2 is usually when I focus a little bit more on negative guides, or when I do a full spirit guide realignment, I actually find out about negative guides as well, because these negative guides actually have to be moved on as soon as possible so that they don't uphold specific beliefs or programs within you that are stopping you from moving forward. If you, for example, had a negative guide that said, money is bad, it's very terrible and it hurts people or it separates families. And if you hold a program like that and you get older, you're constantly going to be afraid to have too much money because you're worried that it's going to create issues within a relationship, for example. So that's why it's really important to remove something like that. But it's not just removal. We also need to be able to replace that guide with a more positive guide. So that's one of the things that I do within the clearings in a realignment 1 and a realignment 2. What we want to do is any kind of entities or energies that we have to move on, we either need to replace them or replace that energy with a positive energy. In regards to the spirit guides, we want to replace it with a positive spirit guide. And we might even need an extra one to come in to help stabilize the team and get the whole team of spirit guides working together and used to being together again without having that negative guide upholding a negative program for you. Now, I know you all want to know exactly how you connect with your spirit guides, and I will definitely go into some of that. But first, I want to also answer a couple of frequently asked questions. One of the questions I most get asked is, what's the names of my spirit guides? Now, this is a complicated question because when you think about it, your spirit guides are ultimately energy. Okay, so it's our human construct, first of all, to give them names. Second of all, imagine, just for humor's sake, imagine your spirit guide was someone like Elvis Presley. Okay, now does that mean that every single one of his lifetimes he was Elvis Presley? No. So of course I'm not going to call that person Elvis Presley as a spirit guide, because he could have been Elvis, he could have been Marilyn Monroe in another lifetime, he could have been the president in a previous lifetime, he could have been God knows how many different things in so many different lifetimes. So it doesn't make sense to label these spirit guides or this energy just one thing when it's not just one thing that they've ever been in their lifetime. Another question I do get asked is, are my spirit guides a loved one or a deceased ancestor or someone that we knew? No, it's very, 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 very rare that a spirit guide would be someone that you ever knew in this lifetime or any of your deceased loved ones, because they need to, first of all, they need to remain emotionally detached and energetically detached in order to keep growing. Second of all, they would have had to perfect a specific experience in their physical form to have surpassed the need to continue to to continue to only learn in spirit form. If these beings just recently have been incarnated, unless they completely mastered their physical experience, it's not normal that they would become a spirit guide. So a spirit guide would be someone, for example, who'd mastered their relationships, and they are so amazing and great with relationships that then you hire them to support you within relationships. So if your deceased loved one isn't the master of relationships, then it's not likely that they would be a spirit guide. your spirit guide, imagine one of your spirit guides is just amazing with money, finances, their manifesting skills, and their ability to create, healthy businesses and all that. The chances are that they have already mastered that in physical form as well. So now they can actually guide you in spirit form in that area. But if your particular family member hadn't mastered that area of money and finances, then again, it's not likely that they would be your spirit guide, especially around, issues of money and finances. And the last most common question I get asked is, what dimensions are they from? So if you're familiar with my work, I speak a lot about 3D, 4D and 5D, and how there's very rare people in physical form who manage to reach 6D level of consciousness. And ultimately what I'm trying to do is constantly show my clients how to reach 6-dimensional level of consciousness. So usually by the time we've reached high levels of 6D level of consciousness in physical form, we're more likely to have the option to become a spirit guide. So usually spirit guides will present with very, very high 6D or maybe 7D up to possibly 9D level of consciousness. And that's because simply by the time you get to 7D upwards, you don't really have to incarnate into physical form. You're ultimately part of, all that is. You're part of the collective consciousness. And the need to be here in physical separation form is probably not really as beneficial. Okay, so finally, what you've all been waiting for. How do we connect with our spirit guides? So the best way to connect with our spirit guides is to be very, very clear on our intention or our goal, what we're wanting to create, or what is the final outcome that we are focused on. For example, when you were to go on Google, if you were looking something up, the last thing you would do is say, hey, show me something, Google. No, you want to have a very clear intention. When you go on Google, you say, what is the meaning of such and such? Or what is the purpose of this? Or why should we use whatever it is that you want to know about? Ask them a question and ask for validation. I'll tell you a cute story about my spirit guides and how I interacted with them. So I decided that elephants was going to be my specific symbol. And I wanted to know that my spirit guides were around this long time ago. And I said, right, if you're around and you're listening to me, show me elephants, okay? And usually you can give them about 1 or 2 days to give you a reply or an answer. So interestingly, the next day, I went into my fridge and my husband had bought a massive carton of elephant beer and it was in the fridge. So here I was thinking, I'm not going to go to the zoo anytime soon. What's the chance of me seeing elephants? And right there in my fridge, when I opened the door, there's an elephant. That was completely unplanned. And I looked up into, the air, picturing that my spirit guides were somewhere there. And I was thinking, right, good one, you got me, now do it again. So I said, show me another elephant, and it was so funny. The next day, my little 6-year-old came up to me with a picture she'd drawn, and of course, she goes, Mummy, I drew you an elephant. And I'm like, okay, you win this time. So definitely they were listening to me. These days, whenever I want confirmation of something specific, I ask them to show me an elephant. If I don't see an elephant at some point throughout those 1 to 2 days, then I know I'm obviously not on the right path. I'll tell you what was interesting once. I actually it was a seafood restaurant one day, and I had asked for a specific sign that I was on the right track. And obviously I asked for elephants. And funnily enough, I was sitting on the table eating my food, and this beautiful lady comes and sits right in front of me, and she had elephants all over her shirt. So that was a clear sign that, the question that I'd asked, I was getting confirmation for that. So do ask lots of questions and make sure you look out for any of these confirmations. Be very clear on what you expect to see. So you might say, show me the color red, show me the color orange. If I'm on the right path, show me green. If I'm on the wrong path, constantly show me lots and lots of red. Maybe you can ask for a sound. Maybe you can ask for a specific song. So it really depends on the best way that you receive information, and the guides can definitely help you in that way. Over time, you'll start to recognize their energy. You'll start to get a sensation or a feeling or, something that tells you straight away, hey, that's my confirmation. The more you do this, the more your spirit guides will start thinking, hey, she's listening to me. I always like to give my spirit guides some confirmation. So I will just kind of look up in the air and go, okay, you got me. Or, yep, I got that message. Or I'll give them a confirmation like saying, yep, got it, I heard it. And then obviously your guides are going to think, oh, okay, she got the message. So the more she hears us, the more we should talk to her because we know she's listening. But if you're getting guidance and you're constantly missing the signs or you're constantly ignoring the signs, your spirit guides will eventually say, oh, well, she's not listening anyway, so what's the point on saying anything? So take the time to connect with them as often as possible. Do it daily, every day. Don't be afraid to ask them too many times or give them too much work. They're there for you. They're hired to support and guide you. You want to give them something to do. They love having conversations with you. Don't ever be afraid to give them too much. That's what they are there for. I hope that's helped you create a little bit more of an idea on how to connect with your guides and how to create a more solid connection with them. If you ever want more information about what I do or my realignments or my counselling therapies, please check out my website at www.carlasavannah.com.au. Within my realignments, I do Akashic Records readings. So basically, I'm tapping into a person's soul blueprint. I want to find out who they are at soul level, what their personality type is like, soul's personality, what planet they came from, what blocks and restrictions are stopping them from attaining full consciousness. I uncover the past life soul stories of things that might still be affecting them. You get a set of clearings. So it's a very big, amount of information, and it's all recorded. Otherwise, I've got 8 Selves Therapy Counselling, which is a way of me teaching people how to activate all the 8 ingredients of their soul so they can learn how to create a very solid and strong connection with their higher self. That way people learn how to eliminate internal conflict and have that constant intuitive connection and know that they are receiving accurate information from their soul. So I do have a few options. I hope you enjoyed this audio. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have an amazing day. Mwah.